Welcome to We Hope in God channel. Today we are diving into a passage of ancient law that at first glance you might just read right past.
Mhm.
It seems purely organizational, maybe a little military, but if you really sit with it, the grace and the radical love of Jesus practically leap off the page.
Really does.
We're looking at a personal quiet time reflection that was shared with us, and it focuses on this really surprising set of
Yeah.
exemptions, divine exemptions, found deep in the book of Deuteronomy.
That's right. And the mission for this deep dive is really to take that personal meditation, which is structured so simply, just scripture, reflection, and then application, and use it as a kind of shortcut.
Shortcut, I like that.
Yeah, a shortcut to see how this Old Testament law passage is, well, it's less about restriction and much more about revelation. We're looking for those aha moments of compassion that are really hiding in plain sight.
Right, because when most of us think of Old Testament law, especially military rules, we expect, strictness, severity. But our source material draws us to a passage that emphasizes compassion and accommodation and the sanctity of human joy. So we're zeroing in on Deuteronomy chapter 20.
Mm-hmm.
This is where Moses is setting the rules for war and just so unexpectedly provides these clear paths for people to just go home.
And to set the stage, the context here is just so dramatic. We're listening in as Moses is addressing the Israelites east of the Jordan River.
Okay, so they're right on the edge.
They're literally days away from entering the Promised Land. I mean, think about that. They're about to go from being wandering nomads to a settled nation.
Wow.
And Moses is repeating the law one last time to prepare them, not just for conquest, but, for community life.
And this preparation for battle, it includes a roll call where the officers are told to weed out soldiers, not based on weakness or injury, but based on life circumstances.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Let's look at it. It's Deuteronomy 20, verses 5 through 8. It details 4 very, very specific exemptions. The first 3 are all about new beginnings, unfulfilled joy. First, the officers ask, has anyone built a new house and not yet begun to live in it?
Mm-hmm.
Let him go home, or he may die in battle and someone else begin to live in it.
Wow. The second one is tied to economic security, that long-term vision. It says, has anyone planted a vineyard and not begun to enjoy its fruit?
Right.
Let him go home, or he may die in battle and someone else enjoy it.
And then the third, it addresses the sacred act of forming a family. Has anyone become pledged to a woman and not married her?
Let him go home.
Or he may die in battle and someone else marry her.
And then we get to the fourth one, which, frankly, it just throws all standard military logic completely out the window.
It really does.
It says, is anyone afraid or faint-hearted? Let him go home so that his fellow soldiers will not become disheartened too.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Why these first 3? In a life or death situation for the entire nation, why does God prioritize a house, a vineyard, and an engagement
Over soldiers.
over the immediate need for fighting men?
And this is where the core insight of the source material it really shines. It challenges that whole idea that the law was just given for the sake of the law.
Right.
Instead, it argues these instructions were given, and I'm quoting here, for the sake of people and for the good of the community. So these first 3 exemptions, they're basically God protecting an individual's investment in hope.
Protecting hope. That's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Especially when you think about their history.
Exactly.
These people were slaves in Egypt for generations. They had no personal property, no economic stability, very little control over who they married.
None at all. So for them, owning a home, planting and harvesting their own fruit, establishing their own family, that wasn't just a normal rite of passage.
No.
It was the fulfillment of the promise, the tangible fruits of freedom. So to risk losing that very first taste of the promise was seen, apparently, as a greater loss than losing a single soldier.
So what God is really saying is, I know you're standing at the threshold of this new joy, and I don't want you to lose the blessing I gave you before you even had a chance to really experience it.
That's it exactly.
Yeah.
It turns what should be a military draft into a form of divine consideration for a person's emotional and spiritual well-being.
It's incredible.
And if you compare this to other ancient Near Eastern military codes, this is revolutionary. Most conquering armies ran on maximum efficiency, ruthless conscription.
Of course.
The idea that a soldier could just walk away because he hadn't moved into his new house yet, it would have been completely unthinkable. It just highlights how much God values beginnings, new chapters, and the fulfillment of these long-awaited dreams.
Okay, so we've covered the blessings, the beginnings, but let's shift to that final and maybe the most intriguing exemption. The faint-hearted soldier.
Yes.
In any army, ancient or modern, fear is a liability. Why would a general, directed by God himself, willingly send home his most fearful soldiers? It seems like you'd be weakening your own ranks.
This is a classic point of, contention, because on the surface it seems purely compassionate. God is being gentle toward the weak, recognizing human frailty.
Which is beautiful in itself.
It is. But if you look deeper, the law includes a very pragmatic condition. They have to go home so that his fellow soldiers will not become disheartened too.
Ah, so you're suggesting this law is functioning as much as, like, mental health support for the whole army as it is individual grace?
Precisely.
It's not just about the one soldier.
No, it's a strategic move to preserve the morale of the entire community. It's a holistic view of strength.
That makes so much sense.
An ancient battle was deeply, deeply dependent on cohesion, on shared morale. One person panicking could trigger a rout.
And cause dozens of deaths.
Exactly. So by proactively removing the person whose fear is already debilitating, God prevents the spread of that fear. He cares for the individual, yes, but he also strategically cares for the collective by prioritizing emotional and spiritual resilience over just raw numbers.
That is a masterstroke of psychological wisdom, just embedded in military law. It tells you that God looks beyond the immediate, utility of a person.
Right.
And he considers the cascading effects of their internal state on everyone else. It's not just go home because I love you, but also go home because your current state could hinder the entire body.
And that right there, that synthesizes the entire reflection so beautifully. Whether it's accommodating a new beginning or managing overwhelming fear, God knows our joys, our longings, and our specific limitations. He meets us right there in our specific human situation.
And that realization that God accommodates our beginnings and our limitations, that's the core grace that you receive in this quiet time meditation. It just shifts your perspective from this judgmental deity demanding perfect compliance to a caring father who strategically removes barriers to joy and to resilience. So that moves us to the so what. What does this detailed instruction about ancient houses and faint-hearted soldiers? What does it mean for us today as we try to apply this in our own walk with Christ?
Well, the application is so powerful because it reveals four, I'd say, non-negotiable aspects of God's character that are just as true today under the New Covenant as they were back in the Jordan River.
Okay, what are they?
First, he understands our hearts. He knows our longings for security, for belonging. Second, he protects our joy. He honors and protects those long-awaited blessings.
That new job, that new relationship.
That breakthrough moment in your faith. Exactly. And he doesn't want the enemy to steal that joy before it's fully realized.
And the third?
The third, and this is maybe the most comforting, is that he is gentle toward the weak and the faint-hearted. He doesn't cast out those who struggle with anxiety or fear.
No, he makes an accommodation for them.
He makes an accommodation. And fourth, he calls the community to walk together, to bear one another's burdens. That faint-hearted rule is a collective one. It reminds us that our individual struggles impact the whole body, and the community is strengthened not by shaming the weak, but by accommodating them.
That reframes so much of what we experience. So if you're listening and you're standing at the threshold of a new chapter, a new career, a huge move, starting a family, and you feel overwhelmed, this deep dive is a reminder that God sees that threshold. He is the God who protects the joy of your beginnings.
Or, on the other hand, if you're struggling with fear, with anxiety about the future, you can find just immense comfort that the divine law itself provided an exemption for those who were afraid or faint-hearted.
It wasn't an insult.
It wasn't an insult, it was divine provision.
It just allows us to step away from that harsh judgment that we sometimes bring to the Old Testament law, and instead see the meticulous, gentle hand of the giver. He's interested in the quality of your life and your joy, even in the middle of a conflict.
Yes.
So the ultimate takeaway from the source material is this invitation to integrate that knowledge of God's compassionate character and to move forward together in love with those around you.
Exactly.
Knowing that their circumstances, their joys, their fears are truly valued by the Creator.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it raises a really important question for all of us to reflect on.
Okay.
If even the stringent requirements of military law, which determine the very survival of the nation, if even that contains such specific, generous exemptions to protect personal joy and accommodate human weakness, how much greater, how much more complete must be the grace that's available to us today under the new covenant established by Christ?
That is an immense And a very provocative thought to leave you with: consider taking some time to deeply reflect on God's love, revealed even in the constraints and the exceptions of the law. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Deuteronomy 20. May each meditation you undertake be a small light for your walk with Christ.
You built a home, but haven't lived inside. You planted seeds, no harvest in your sight. You made a promise, a love not yet complete. You stand at joy's door, not ready for retreat. God sees the joy you're meant to find. He knows the seasons of your life. Before the war cry fills the air, He calls your heart back into care. Go home, you are not forgotten. Go home, your joy is still sacred. The Lord who knows your fragile heart walks with you before the battle starts. Shaking deep inside. If courage feels too hard to find, you built a home, but haven't lived inside. You planted seeds, no harvest in your sight. You made a promise, love not yet complete. You stand at joy's door, not ready for retreat. God sees the joy you're meant to find. He knows the seasons of your life. Before the war cry fills the air, He calls your heart back into care. Go home, you are not forgotten. Go home, your joy is still sacred. The Lord who knows your fragile heart walks with you before the battle starts. Shaking deep inside. If courage feels too hard to find, you're not cast out, you're not alone. Grace makes a way to lead you home. Go home, you are not forgotten. Go home, your joy is still sacred. The Lord who knows your fragile heart walks with you before the battle starts.